Welcome back to Rewind and Review, where we dive deep into the films that have left a lasting mark on cinema history. Today we're talking about one of the greatest sci-fi horror films of all time, Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1978. If you're a fan of edge-of-your-seat thrills, unsettling paranoia, and alien horror at its best, you're in for a treat. This classic has stood the test of time, not just for its terrifying story, but also for its influence on pop culture and its spine-tingling exploration of identity and trust. So grab your popcorn, turn down the lights, and let's dive into this legendary journey from beginning to end. Invasion of the Body Snatchers opens with a hauntingly beautiful, yet terrifying scene. Alien spores drift through space, searching for a new home, and they finally reach Earth, settling among plants and leaves. These strange, shimmering particles begin to spread, quietly taking root on Earth's greenery. Soon we see how they replicate and grow, transforming into what will become their ultimate weapon, pods capable of duplicating human beings. This unsettling beginning sets the stage for a tale of paranoia and identity loss, as these alien invaders plan to replace every last human, one pod at a time. Our story begins in San Francisco, where we're introduced to the unsettling mystery at the core of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Elizabeth Driscoll, a scientist at the San Francisco Health Department, is starting to notice something strange. Her boyfriend Jeffrey is acting off. There's something robotic about him, a lack of emotion that's beginning to scare her. Once loving and attentive, Jeffrey now seems distant, like he's there in body, but not quite himself. Elizabeth's concern quickly turns into fear as she realizes he's changed. He's cold, emotionless, almost robotic. This transformation isn't just subtle, it's downright chilling. The film's atmosphere builds on Elizabeth's unease, as she questions if the man she loves is still there, or if something sinister has taken his place. This unsettling shift plants the seed of doubt, sparking the tension that will soon unravel into a terrifying discovery. Little does she know, her life is about to change forever. Desperate for answers, she turns to her colleague and close friend Matthew Burnell, played by Donald Sutherland. Matthew, a dedicated health inspector, is intrigued by Elizabeth's suspicions and agrees to help her uncover what's really going on. Tension reaches new heights in the chilling scene at the Chinese laundry. Dr. Burnell meets a frantic man who claims his wife is not herself. The man's terror is palpable, convinced his wife has been replaced. As Matthew listens, we see a subtle paranoia creeping into his eyes. The laundry's otherwise ordinary setting becomes eerie, underscoring how this invasion hides in plain sight. It's a haunting glimpse of the Body Snatchers' growing presence, setting the tone for the terror ahead. As they dig deeper, strange encounters and mounting evidence reveal a terrifying possibility that people in their lives are being replaced by emotionless duplicates. In these early scenes, Invasion of the Body Snatchers perfectly captures the slow-building paranoia and suspense that define this sci-fi horror classic. Elizabeth catches Jeffrey whilst looking through a window at work and see him hanging around some strange people. Curious and unsettled, Elizabeth secretly follows Jeffrey through the city and sees him meeting up with a group of unfamiliar people in a train station. They're exchanging strange, quiet glances, their expressions blank, almost hollow. It's enough to give her chills. Later that day, as she walks through the bustling streets, she senses something even more disturbing. People around her look almost identical. She sees emotionless faces everywhere, like they're going through the motions, but something vital is missing. She meets up again with her friend Matthew, who shares the same view about what's happening. As they are driving along, suddenly in a flash of terror, a man comes barreling toward her and screams, warning her about something unspeakable. His panic is real, desperate, but before anyone can help, he collapses and dies just around the corner, leaving Elizabeth and everyone else in shock. Elizabeth realizes there's something far more sinister going on, and she can't ignore it any longer. This isn't just paranoia, something is deeply wrong. It's a brutal, unnerving scene, setting the stage for a story where no one is safe and no one can be trusted. Tension mounts as Elizabeth and Matthew arrive at a party hosted by Jack Belisek and Dr. David Kibner, played by Jeff Goldblum and Leonard Nimoy. The room is tense and things escalate when a frantic woman bursts in, claiming her husband has changed and is no longer himself. Kibner, a psychologist, tries to calm her, dismissing her fears as paranoia. Elizabeth then confides in Kibner, expressing her suspicions about her boyfriend Jeffrey and how he's been acting strangely. But Kibner brushes it off, convinced it's all stress and delusion. Frustrated and unheard, Elizabeth feels her fear deepen. Things take a sinister turn when Jack and Nancy, who run a massage and mud bath suite, stumble upon something nightmarish. They find a lifeless, unformed body on the bed, one that looks eerily similar to Jack himself. The clone lies there unfinished, like a hollow version of him, lacking features and personality, but somehow undeniably alive. This horrifying discovery sends Jack and Nancy into a panic, realizing that something deeply unnatural is happening. They immediately call in their friend, Matthew. When Matthew arrives, he's both shocked and horrified by the scene, recognizing that this clone seems to have come from a mysterious, plant-like pod left nearby. But before he can fully investigate, Matthew's instincts kick in. He suspects Elizabeth, the woman he deeply cares about, may also be in danger. Racing against time, he dashes off, leaving the ominous pod and Jack's eerie double behind to save her. This scene is terrifying, showing how the alien invasion creeps in, subtly replacing humans one by one. It's a moment that's haunted audiences for decades, symbolizing fear of the unknown and the terror of losing our humanity. Matthew races against time to save Elizabeth Driscoll from a horrifying fate at the hands of her boyfriend Jeffrey, who has become an emotionless pod person. As Matthew sneaks into Elizabeth's home, he discovers a chilling sight. In her bedroom, lying side by side, are two bodies. One of them, Elizabeth's clone, still forming, barely human. It's a ghastly, half-completed replica with blank eyes and a disturbing lack of expression. It's clear that if Matthew hadn't arrived in time, Elizabeth would have been replaced by this soulless copy. Just as he's about to pull her out, Jeffrey appears, emotionless and robotic, his gaze vacant but threatening. Matthew grabs Elizabeth, and together they narrowly escape, slipping away from the pod people who now swarm the city, silently hunting them. This isn't just a sci-fi thriller. It's a horror story about what it means to be human and the terror of losing your identity. As Matthew, Elizabeth, Jack, and Nancy realize what's happening, they frantically try to escape. But the pod people are everywhere. Neighbors, co-workers, and even city officials are turning into these eerie duplicates. The city, once bustling with life, feels more and more like a cold, hostile place. This is where Invasion of the Body Snatchers showcases its genius in building dread. Every corner, every face could hide an enemy, and the film forces us to share the characters' paranoia. Matthew, exhausted, seeks refuge in his backyard. It's late and the eerie calm settles over him as he drifts off to sleep on a lawn chair. Unknown to him, however, something terrifying is unfolding in the darkness. As Matthew dozes off, alien pods, large, fleshy, plant-like organisms, start to emit a strange goo, bubbling and pulsating in the garden. One by one, these pods begin to open, revealing twisted, embryonic forms of Matthew and his friends, Elizabeth, Jack, and Nancy. They're all being cloned right there in the garden, while they sleep, helpless to resist. These pod creatures begin growing rapidly, taking on each person's exact likeness, even mirroring their distinct physical features and quirks. The camera captures the slow, grotesque transformation. Matthew's clone's face, eerily peaceful, contorts and twitches, gradually taking on his own unique features. Meanwhile, Jack, Nancy, and Elizabeth lie unconscious nearby, blissfully unaware of their fates as the pods steadily morph into perfect copies of them. The horror of this scene is that Matthew and his friends are losing not only their lives but their identities. These clones will awaken, cold and emotionless, completely indistinguishable from the originals. Director Philip Kaufman uses subtle, ominous music, close-ups, and shadows to amplify the dread. showing us a horrifying glimpse into a world where humans are being stripped of their identity. Matthew, as the leader, tries to find help, but it's too late. Their world has already been taken over, and the few allies they thought they had quickly turn into enemies. One of the film's most haunting moments is when Matthew tries to call for help, only to realize that everyone he thought he could trust has already been replaced. The city feels like a massive trap, with the pods multiplying at an unstoppable rate. The last act of Invasion of the Body Snatchers takes us on a relentless chase. Matthew and Elizabeth are running out of options, and the pod people are closing in on them. The fear is palpable, and the intensity is unrelenting as they make one last desperate attempt to escape. The movie's pacing here is flawless, keeping the audience hooked and rooting for their survival. The real horror comes from watching our heroes slowly realize the hopelessness of their situation. They've seen friends transformed, allies turn against them, and the realization hits hard. There's nowhere left to run. After separating from their friends, Matthew and Elizabeth find themselves in grave danger. They've realized that almost everyone they know has been turned into these emotionless pod duplicates. Desperate for help, they head to the government health building, hoping it's a safe haven. But they're wrong. Very wrong. Inside, they're confronted by Dr. Kibner, a trusted colleague. But Kibner has changed. He's now one of them, a pod person, and he has no sympathy left for the humans. Coolly, he explains that resistance is futile. He insists this new way of being is better, free from pain and emotion. In a chilling moment, he tells them they'll soon join the others and lose their humanity. Matthew and Elizabeth are horrified, but before they can fight back, Kibner and the now transformed Jack force them down and inject them with a sedative. Trapped and drugged, they're slipping into unconsciousness, helpless against the transformation that awaits. But in a thrilling twist, Matthew fights off the effects of the sedative, managing to wake Elizabeth just in time. Together, they make a desperate escape, running through dimly lit hallways, hunted at every turn by their former friends, who are now soulless pods. The tension is palpable, each second a countdown as they try to stay awake and outrun their fate. This scene is a powerful blend of terror and tension, showcasing the sheer horror of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Matthew and Elizabeth meet Nancy in a shadowy stairwell. Nancy has managed to survive by blending in, suppressing her emotion to avoid detection by the pod people. Together, they make their way outside and find themselves in a surreal nightmare. The entire city is under the pod people's control. Organized rows of citizens move in sync, transporting the ominous alien pods across San Francisco. It's a massive operation designed to capture any remaining humans and clone them into emotionless shells, but things quickly take a darker turn. As they walk among the emotionless crowd, they stumble upon a horrifying sight. A half-human, half-dog creature. Its twisted face and animalistic eyes are a nightmarish result of a failed pod transformation, reminding us of the grotesque horrors lurking behind this invasion. The creature snarls, catching the attention of a nearby pod person. Instantly, an alarm is raised, and the trio is forced to run as the pod people give chase. They scramble into the back of a truck, heart racing, as they narrowly escape detection. The truck takes them to a warehouse where Matthew and Elizabeth discover the grim heart of the operation. Inside, countless alien pods are being cultivated and prepared, each one destined to replace a human life. The scale of the invasion becomes clear. There's nowhere left to run. The pods are everywhere, and the city, once familiar and safe, is now a cold, alien stronghold. This scene brilliantly captures the terror of losing humanity in the face of an unstoppable force. The breaking point comes when Matthew finds Elizabeth, the woman he loves, transformed into a pod person. Her real body decays instantly. Matthew is heartbroken and filled with rage. He goes on a desperate rampage, smashing through a warehouse packed with alien pods, doing everything he can to sabotage their operation. It's a heroic but futile effort, as he soon finds himself alone, hunted, and on the run. Now the tension peaks when Matthew escapes from the pod-filled warehouse. Surrounded by emotionless duplicates, he narrowly avoids capture, slipping into the shadows as the chilling sounds of alien screams fill the air. The city is eerily silent, its inhabitants now overtaken, leaving him truly isolated, knowing he's humanity's last hope. But with every corner turned, another pod person lurks, closing in. This scene captures the essence of the film's paranoia and dread. Matthew's frantic escape is a fight for survival against an unstoppable force. But the nightmare doesn't end there. In a haunting twist, we see Matthew back at his job at the health department, seemingly normal. Yet there's an eerie hollowness to him. He moves through the city, now a place devoid of humanity. Finally, he encounters Nancy, the last surviving human in their group. She sees him and breathes a sigh of relief until he turns, points at her, and unleashes a chilling scream. This shocking reveal leaves us breathless, questioning if anyone can truly escape. Thanks for watching Rewind and Review. If you love deep dives into classic films, spine-chilling horror, and thrilling sci-fi, then this is the place for you. Don't miss our upcoming recaps and exclusive insights. There's always something new to discover about the movies you love. Hit that subscribe button now, tap the notification bell to stay updated, and join a community of movie buffs who can't get enough of cinematic gems. Dive into the past and experience movies like never before. See you in the next review.